that is basically my story. And what I encourage you to do is to read through the Constitution, read through the Declaration of Independence, understand what it is, understand the basis for our system here. These people here, and I, and Scalia, the Federalist Society, believes in the original words of the Constitution mean what they say. This group thinks that the Constitution is a living document and that the words have to be interpreted in light of changing conditions. And Kennedy even said, and in light of international norms. Right. So like if the EU thinks something is bad, well, my gosh, we shouldn't do that either. So fortunately, he's retired. There's on the list of Supreme Court justices, you'll see that there's some who are still alive, and they can actually be called back into service, not on the Supreme Court, but in the Court of Appeals or in a district court to handle some cases if they want to. What used to happen in South Florida in the winter, this time of year, in the wintertime, a district judge from the north, from Wisconsin or Chicago right now, if he's smart, he's down here in cases in the Southern District of Florida because he can do that. He can just put his name in and say, I'm available and I'll hear some cases. And he'll hear federal cases, not diversity cases, which is based on local law, but federal cases. Go down there, hear federal criminal cases. I saw a judge from the Midwest in the wintertime did a big drug importation case. Yeah, okay. I said something, I went after one of the breaks, and a bunch of us were there, and we went to chambers with the judge, and we were talking about the case, and I said, you got these bales of marijuana, and I said, this is not a very big seizure. And he looked at me and said, boy, where we come from, that's a pretty big seizure. Iowa or somewhere like that, So South Florida was nothing. So in any event, Edmund Burke supposedly said, the only thing that's necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing or say nothing. I refuse to say nothing and do nothing. So I'm continuing to fight the battle, as Mark and some of my compatriots in the legislature now and in the future. Hopefully, in 2 years, we'll be able to take back the legislature. In the 2 years I was in the legislature, in the committee, I was on the election law committee, and then in the full House. And I was asked to speak for the full House several times, either for or against particular things, which to me was an honor, and because you can tell how shy I am. I'm not used to public speaking. So, but it was a lot of fun. But in those 2 years, I cast hundreds of votes, whether on the committee or in the full House. If you look at the Republican Party platform and the platform issues that failed in that biennium, you will see that invariably, every one of them, I have the analysis, I didn't bring it, there's a core group of 15 to 30 rhinos, Republicans in name only, who voted against the party platform. The result of which is we lost the right to work, we lost school choice, educational savings accounts, we lost the transgender counseling ban, all these different things because we have open primaries where if you're not a registered Republican, you can come in as an undeclared and ask for a Republican primary ballot and vote for whoever you think is going to be the easiest to beat in the general election or whatever. My view is that if you want to vote in the Republican primary, you ought to be a Republican. If you want to vote in the Democratic primary, you ought to be a Democrat. Everybody can vote in the general election, but the parties have to adopt rules to that effect. They have a right under state law to adopt those rules, and they have so far not done that. They want to have a big tent. They don't want to, there's all this group, it's probably 30, 30, and 40. Dems, Republicans, and undeclared. It's 40% undeclared, and we don't want to shut them out of decisions. So why should, if you're undeclared, why should you be deciding upon who's going to be the candidate of a particular party that you didn't feel intellectually confident enough to register as? If you don't believe in it, don't vote in that primary. Register and vote in the primary. And when you vote in the primary, you register and vote in the primary. On your way out, under New Hampshire election laws, you can change back. You can change back to undeclared. But the state party won't change the rules. I've tried now 2 years in a row. State party won't change the rules. So that's what happens. That's our system. We need to elect people who believe in the Constitution as written. We need to elect people who believe in limited government. I'm one of 14 Republicans who voted against the budget that passed in 2017, not because it raised taxes, because it didn't, because it increased the size of government without raising taxes. And government's too big now. Government, just remember when you think about government, these are the folks who brought you the post office.
Right.
Right? Mm-hmm. That's, there's no accountability. Look at, I say, you want to have an audit of some state funds or something like, or municipal funds? Let's hire Lois Lerner. Remember Lois Lerner from the IRS? She's the one who orchestrated the stonewalling of conservative groups seeking the 501c3 designations, and she basically waffled on her Fifth Amendment claim of not to incriminate herself, but then said, I didn't do anything wrong, but I'm taking the Fifth. And the Congress did nothing. The Congress should have gone to court to compel her to answer based on her waiver of the Fifth by making this bullshit statement. Sorry, potty mouth. Okay, so, and what is she doing? She's on a pension. She's retired. She's probably consulting somewhere and making lots of money while we're paying for her. All right, now questions. Yes, sir.
I have a question on succession. Ruth Bader Ginsburg has not been heard from for several weeks, which has led to all sorts of stories on the internet, which may very well be conspiracy theories that she's on a ventilator somewhere in a hospital, she's in a medically induced coma, and we're not being told about that. I'm not sure if I put much stock in those. But if a justice were to have a stroke and be unable to communicate, or develop dementia and be unable to reason, given that these are lifetime appointments, what should happen if a justice were still alive yet unable to fulfill the duties of the job?
Then someone has to take it before the House, do articles of impeachment saying they're incapacitated, not likely to recover, should be removed from office, send it to the Senate, have a trial in the Senate, and remove. But that ain't going to happen. Ginsburg has said repeatedly, as she's aged and she had her first bout with cancer, she said, I'm leaving this building in a box. I'm not resigning, anything like that. I'm leaving in a box. They're going to have to carry me out. So she's going to hang in there as long as she can. That's the only remedy we have is impeachment.
So even if she were, as some of these conspiracy theories say, on a ventilator, never to recover, the Dems aren't going to certify her as being dead. They're not going to. She's not going to. Articles of impeachment will fail in the House because they have a Democratic majority. And I said something to. I'm sitting around trying to book this speech in some other places, and I said something about the succession and everything else. And one of the librarians said, "Oh my God, I hope RBG holds in there," or something like that. She's the hero. She's the most admired justice on the court now by the population, by the left. But what happens is, look at the map. Look at the map. Look at the country. Where's my map? Look at the country. Here's the left. Here's the left, and here's the rest of the country. All right. Okay. We used to be a red state, but now we're purple. But the coasts are very liberal. And then the middle part of the country is much more conservative. But, nothing's going to happen to her until she finally croaks or she resigns. The Chief Justice would have to go to her if she's able to understand and say, look, Ruth, she was best friend, her best friend on the court was Scalia. Yeah. But Roberts is going to have to go to her and say, look, appreciate your situation, you really need to take senior status, resign, let us fill a vacancy. She's not going to do that. No. The judge, Roberts is not going to do that because he would get the wrath of the left down on him, and she's not going to do that because she's promised she's not leaving unless she's dead. So, Mark?
Wasn't it back in the 60s or 70s there was a justice that was non-compos mentis, and the Chief Justice put together a scheme where that justice's vote, though cast, would never be the deciding vote on any There's a body of
Yeah.
literature on it.
Yeah, there may be. There may be. You know, what happens is the Chief Justice strives, and particularly Roberts strives, he doesn't like 5-4 decisions. He wants to have unanimous decisions or 7-2, 6-3. He doesn't want to have 5-4s. He wants to have, so if you get a 6-3 or a 7-2 and Ginsburg is not a deciding vote, not going to make any difference.
Right.
No harm, no foul. So, but I'm not familiar with that, but that doesn't surprise me. Anybody see the movie Dave, where the president is on a ventilator hidden away and they get a guy that's a look-alike to come in there, you know? Not as far-fetched as it might seem. A funny movie, a good movie, but nowadays, who knows?
I think they're going with Nancy.
Yeah, well, what I thought was I tried to do it, I told Skip about it. I was looking for pictures on the internet of Michael Cohen, the president's former lawyer, and he goes around and his mouth is turned down like this. Like this. And if you look at the pictures of Maxine Waters from California, her mouth is turned down like that. And I was going to put them up and post it somewhere and saying, twins separated at birth. But I couldn't find good enough pictures. So, in any event, Mark.
When we had the founding documents for about up to the Civil War, states' rights were a really important topic.
Yep.
And when you referred to the United States of America, you would say the United States of America are in the plural, and the emphasis was on the component parts. After the Civil War, America became and is the federal bureaucracy started to creep in, and we changed. And it wasn't long after the Civil War that Woodrow Wilson came along with the living Constitution, and then it took all the way to FDR's reign to get the Supreme Court decision-making to yield to the progressive change in thought pattern. Can you speak to how that flowed through?
Okay, Wilson is a perfect example of, he became very ill, and during a good part of his last term, his wife ran the country. Okay.
Yeah, he had so many strokes, he had
Yes.
what's called multi-infarct dementia.
Right, okay, so he was like Dave, put away, his wife ran the country. Now, when the Bill of Rights were added, the first 10 amendments were added to get enough of the nine votes necessary to adopt the Constitution, Article 9, Amendment 9 says, the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage other rights retained by the people. Amendment 10, the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. And no one seems to focus on that. No one seems to focus on that. I met the guy who argued the Second Amendment cases, the McDonald and the Heller cases. Thomas, the decisions in those cases focused on the Second Amendment, the language of the Second Amendment, the history of the Second Amendment, etc. Thomas would like to see more focus on the 14th Amendment aspects, which are the privileges and immunities, and no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, or nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. This was passed in the beginning of the Civil Rights era. This was early after the Civil War, 1868. And so Thomas would like to focus some Second Amendment cases on privileges and immunities. I asked Alan Gura, who was the lawyer who spoke at the Federalist Society down in South Florida, I said, are you willing to argue the the privileges and immunities to Thomas because he's written, this is great stuff, you know? He says, I'm willing to argue anything as long as I get to 5. That's what he did. He got to 5. So who knows what's going to happen now? We'll have more than 5 on this latest one on New York.
Croc TV.